In more modern times, America once again turned to Burns to describe a nation's sadness and grief following the tragic circumstances in the attack on New York. They turned to one of his works written in 1784 titled Man Was Made to Mourn. For mounted on a plaque which is now called Ground Zero is written the words, man's inhumanity to man makes countless thousands mourn. Robert Burns' fame was not just reserved for foreign shores. His first book, Poems Chiefly in the Scottish Dialect, sold 612 books, sold out by subscription, 350 of which were bought by Freemasons. His reputation established, and then Edinburgh beckoned. Burns arrived in Edinburgh on the 28th of November 1786 and took up quarters in Baxter's Close in the Lawn Market with John Richmond, a clerk of his acquaintance he knew from Ayrshire. At the time, Edinburgh was a carefree, squalid, venerable and literary, with every family of quality in Scotland in residence. The brilliant society of the capital welcomed the rustic poet, introduced as he was by noblemen and learned professors. Henry Mackenzie in the Lounger, the then equivalent to the Scotsman newspaper, wrote so glowingly of his poetic genius that the doors of Edinburgh were flung open to him. But Burns' independent spirit and strong intellect carried him safely through this period. On the publication of his Edinburgh edition of his poems, Burns became a wanted man by an Edinburgh society, eager to meet the man described by Mackenzie as a heaven-taught flueman. It was here he wrote an address to the gentlemen and noblemen of the Caledonian Hunt. A Scottish bard and proud of the name, whose highest ambitions to sing in his country's service. Where shall he properly look for patronage as to the land of his illustrious names of his native land? Those who bear the honours and inherit the virtues of their ancestors. The poetic genius of my country found me, as a prophetic bard did Elijah at the plough, and threw her inspired mantle over me. She bade me sing loves of the joys of the rural scenes and rural pleasures of my native soil and in my native tongue. I tuned my wild Atlas notes as she inspired. She whispered for me to come to this ancient metropolis of Caledonia and lay my song under their honoured protection. I now obey her dictates. Robert Burns was now at the height of his fame, and in Edinburgh edition sold over 2,500 copies. But his fame and tenure in the city were short-lived. For pleasures, I like the poppy spread, sees the flower its bloom is shed, or like a snowfall in the river, a moment white then melts forever. In just 18 short months, Burns had spent most of his wealth from his published poetry. His increasing radical political views influenced many of the phenomenal number of poems and songs and letters he continued to pen. Burns spent the final years of his life in Dumfriesshire. From 1788 he attempted to farm at Elmwood, but the ground was so exhausted that ultimately this proved fruitless. Now struggling for money, he took up work as an exciseman for Her Majesty's government. An irony not missed by Burns. But the hard work the new job entailed, counted with the toil of earlier life and the desolate lifestyle, began to take their toll on Robert Burns' health. He died in the small town of Ayr, with a shilling in his pocket, and the shame of every Scotsman should go to the grave with him, that allowed the genius of our country to go to their grave in poverty. But before he died, he put together a collection of songs for a museum of Scots folklore. And one song was to become known as the international national anthem of all mankind. For if you're in Hong Kong or Helensburgh, Camelon or Canada, Brighton or Bangkok, on the last stroke of the bell at midnight, you're reminded not only of your family at home or abroad, or of Robert Burns, but you're reminded that you're a Scot, when he said, "And here's a hand, my trusty fear, and here's a hand o' thine, we'll tak a right good willy walk for old Lang Syne. For old Lang Syne, my jo, for old Lang Syne. We'll meet again some other day for old Lang Syne." Ladies and gentlemen, would you please charge your glasses and be upstanding and join me in the toast in the immortal memory of Robert Burns.